We are recording, very good. And let's see, Gail, I'm making you co-host, so in case you want to do a screen share, you can. And with that, I am turning the mic over to you and to the workshop in organic storytelling, movement efforts, and storytelling for self-awareness and personal growth. Gail, please explain this to us.
Okay, well, we're going to be doing two things. First, we're going to be talking about movement efforts, and I will explain that. And then we will be telling stories throughout that, because we believe that feeling and doing, feeling and healing go together. Laura said that too. I just got in on the end of hers. And but feeling the emotions and the movement, it's all connected. Now, my background is in education and in counseling through being a resident director. So I had a lot of counseling training, and my doctorate is in creativity. So these two things meld, and I see lots of educators here. How many of you were or are educators? Can you raise your hand just so I see? Ah, Linda's here, good, and Joan's here. And I'm trying to see who else, and Donis is here, and a few other people that are on other screens. Oh, Misha, hi. Misha's an educator, or was. Who else? Let's see, there are a lot of screens. I'm not going to be able to say hello to you all. But so my background is mainly with education and counseling students, you would say, from my work as a head of residence. And Jean, I would like to introduce you. Could you share what you do?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jean Powell-Wilson. I'm a psychologist by training. I also have experience homeschooling my two children for 15 years. And yeah, I enjoy working as a parenting coach as well.
Okay, good, great. So I am very happy that you all are interested in this. And we're going to keep in a meeting format probably, but if you would like to, you could spotlight any speaker you like yourself. Just go up to the right-hand corner and put speaker view. I guess we should.
Are you going to do the part 1 and part 2, Gail? Just so that you.
It's gone. That is gone. I would like to start with sharing about movement energy. And in order to do this, I'm only going to start with a story that Jean has to share. So Jean, would you share?
Yes, I will share, but I wanted to just give a little bit of introduction about the movement energy. My background is in psychology, and I've noticed that the techniques that we use as storytellers very naturally, focusing on voice, movement, posture, these are also used as pathways for our own growth. And in the therapies the most recent therapies are emphasizing the use of our bodies. And these are the pathways for our growth. So it's interesting that the neuroscience is confirming everything that we storytellers have already known. And isn't that about time? That people are realizing the importance of movement, of voice, and of our body, important for our life and otherwise. So I'm just going to start off with a story. The first one is about a client. I'm not disclosing any specific information.
Okay.
I had a depressed client that I was seeing for a little while, and I was feeling a little stuck working with her. And I was thinking that I might need to try something a little different instead of what we were doing, instead of going into the past. So I had been exploring a new kind of therapy, and I wanted to bring it up to her to see if she would like to try. And in telling her, I mentioned that I was reading about this woman who was trying out a different pose. This therapy involved different poses. And in this different pose, the woman that I was reading about felt like the Queen of England. And would my client like to try that? So she sat there. She said yes. And with her cane, she said, I kind of guided her. I said, how would you feel just sitting up a little bit more, sitting up straighter in a pose? And she said, this feels good. I do feel like the Queen of England. Just trying on what it would be like. And this was a little different because she was normally hunched over, normally downcast eyes. But now she was looking up. Her chin was higher. Her shoulders were back a little bit. She was just a little bit straighter. So this was clearly a different tack that I was taking. In the next few sessions, this new way of sitting, I noticed, helped her to sit through uncomfortable situations and feelings that she would be experiencing. And then a few sessions later, soon after, she came in, and with a kind of a gleam in her eye, she told me that she had a dream that she was the superhero of her dream. That was quite a surprise to her, as she had always seen herself as the victim. And it was a surprise to me, a very welcome surprise.
Yeah. That's a
So
wonderful
that,
story.
thank you. So that was one example of where the movement and the posture just made a difference in her life. I have another vignette, which is from my own life. Similarly, when I was in 7th grade, I was very shy and very quiet, and I loved lunchtime. You see, I was born, even though I was born in the States, my mother always cooked Chinese food. So lunchtime was very special, kind of an opening for what American food was like. So I remember looking at the menu for the week, circling Salisbury steak, Thanksgiving. Now I know, of course, these are from the can, but mashed potatoes, the yams, the pumpkin pie were all delicacies. They were still a novelty for me. So just to set the scene a little more, I was very shy and quiet. I remember in 6th grade, my spirit animal was that I chose for an essay to describe me was the mourning dove. And this one day in the lunchroom, I was standing in line with my dollar bill, anticipating the lunch that I was going to get. But there behind me came the class bully. He was the kind that wore the leather jacket, that big collar, the spikes around the neck. And from the year before, I remembered he would often play pranks on me and pull the chair out from under me. So I nervously stood in line. When he was next to me, he grabbed my dollar bill. I looked around the lunchroom. There was no one listening. It was just the clanging. Everybody looked away, and I knew I had to do something. So I looked at him and said, give it back. And he, being a foot taller, glared down at me and smirked. Why? My heart was beating so fast it was going to jump out of my throat. But I said, because it's mine. He smirked again and said, okay, good reason. And he flicked back the dollar bill. I took my dollar bill, grabbed my lunch, gave it to the lunch lady, and walked back as fast as I could to the chair where I was sitting. And I was shaking all the way back with my styrofoam tray. I was shocked, not sure if the shock was from my dollar bill being stolen from me or shocked from the voice that came up out of nowhere. But boy, was I glad it did. So I see that in this example, I was able to use my voice in a way that I hadn't used before. Excuse me.
You're getting claps. People are putting up claps.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, I'm losing my place.
The morning dove, the morning dove becomes a standoff.
Becomes what?
Oh, a standoff. You're
Oh,
gonna
yes.
really push up against this force with your
Yes, I
own
did.
force as much as you could muster.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. So you heard it from somewhere. You got this new kind of urgency about, I have to do something to get that done. And this voice came up. And so you experienced it. And it's just interesting. I bet we have other people who have stories about, maybe we could do that in the breakout rooms, about maybe finding a part of themselves that they never really felt comfortable with before. And but you had an experience with that voice from somewhere, from whether it's not your family, because you described your family was
Well, my
very
sister and I argued enough, so I'm sure I built up some practice from there.
okay. So with your sister, good.
Yes.
So there's arguing, but everybody in school, they didn't hear a peep from you, talk louder, your
Right.
teachers used to say.
Yes.
So it was a new, unusual thing. And
Now, didn't you have something to share also about one of your students?
yes, I would like to share that before we go into the actual movements.
Okay.
In storytelling that I do with my students, or did and still do now, we try to get the characters, and in the reading of it too, when I was teaching. Mark, my student in second grade, couldn't speak above a whisper, just like Jean here. And so people didn't really understand when Mark said no. It just didn't compute. Mark was like this. In fact, I'll show you if I can do this now. Wait a minute. I have to change from gallery view. Spotlight for everyone. I think it'll work here. Okay, so Mark was really like this. He was talking like this. And oh, where is everybody? Well, Mark, they went to get their coats. Oh, okay. What were you doing, Mark? And he showed me the flowers upeth pier. He was a poet in second grade. I said, where did you get that word? I needed another syllable. But his demeanor was like within the light range, within the very indirect, his movements, his eye movements, rarely focused directly on the person he was speaking to. So when the boys came up and wanted some of his potato chips or whatever they were, they didn't hear no. They heard, ah. Even though he said, no, those are mine. Okay, we'll just take a few. And so what I did was to try to enlarge Mark's use of, time, space, and force. He just needed to have that in his repertoire. And a very well-known dance therapist president used to say, we need to enlarge our repertoire of energy movements. We have to be able to use them all in our lives at one point or another. And for some, it's just harder than others. And actually, when Mark's mother came in for her meeting, she came in like this. Oh, hello, Mrs. Herman. How are you? I'm right here. She's looking over here. And I just realized, oh, that's Mark's mother. She didn't have to introduce herself. So everybody liked Mark. I'm not making any judgments about that. But he did need this. So we got together in a storytelling game where we got in a big circle, and kids that were learning to tell stories would often say, oh, I'm having a trouble with trying to be the ox in this story from China. I want to. And so we would try these things out. So I figured, well, Mark really could use some kingly, like politicians. So we played the game, King of this land. And we could do that with any character, but we did King of this land. And so Mark would go in and go, I am king of this land, but he was watching other people be the king. And I'm not saying all kings are forceful, but in this story we were doing, the king was forceful. But Mark wasn't quite getting it when we were playing it. So I paired him up with I paired them in pairs. So when they went into the center of the circle and had to look directly in three directions, he was with another boy. And this boy had this, if you call it an energy effort, had it down pat. And so I got the feeling that Mark, felt comfortable kind of echoing or trying to be more like that, just adding it to his repertoire. And well, that wasn't the only thing that Mark liked. He loved it when we did, the ringmaster of the circus. We used to have circuses in town, and kids loved putting on the top hat, and going, ladies and gentlemen, doing this really, welcome to the big top. And that was a voice that is strange for Mark, and he tried that. And of course we did little things too, like, if there was a story and it had a little mouse in it, how would your body feel? Mice are small. How are we going to get that across to the audience? So they got the idea. There were different ways of being mice, never on the floor, always standing, because we're tellers. And so that's what they did. They would find ways to show mice. Some were feisty and some were frightened, but it was just another way of being in the energy efforts. So
Right. I want to add in, I know we were talking about how maybe advantageous it is, especially in certain situations, to be firm, but sometimes it's important to be quiet as a mouse. Maybe when you're walking into a home of a, you know, infant who's sleeping, you're trying not to wake up. Or you're around a shy dog that cannot handle too much energy. So their light is not, I just wanted to make that comment, that light is sometimes a way to be for situations.
Right,
require.
absolutely. And so, and you have certain children in your home that have these particular things, and they can try on. They've come to, we have a storytelling group that I run on Saturday mornings, and several times one or the other of her children have come, and we just, you know, explore these energy efforts, and they're made up of time, space, and force. And they come from Rudolf Laban, who is the father of modern educational dance. Anybody here familiar with uh, dance and Laban and people like that? But psychologists, therapists have been using this theory of how to categorize human energy for a long time, using time, space, and force. And in the process, they, when you look at them, they come up in, you can be combined in different ways. So if I could share my screen for a minute, I can just show you how they are combined. If I can just take your time for a minute. My goodness, it's hard to find them when they're on here.
The share screen icon is on the bottom in the middle.
No, I've got the share screen up. I just can't see that particular one that I have open down here. It's right here, but it's not showing up. See, when I go like that, it doesn't show up. I'm sorry, but I can show it a different way. It's right here. So we have 8 effort actions. Can you see that at all?
Yeah, hold it still.
Yes.
Oh, good. I can send this to anyone that that would like to have them handy, because they do come in handy when you're doing storytelling voices and storytelling movements. They come in very, very handy. And I'm going to do them with you now. Here we go. Okay, are you ready? Hold your hands up and just be with me. Make me feel comfortable, okay? Okay, so we're going to float in a voice. And the floating, of course, is very easy. And this is what Jean is used to. And anyone who feels comfortable with lightness. So let's just try. Hello. How are you? Can you do that? Try it. Go ahead. Use your voice. Hello. How are you? Right. Now, if you change that, that's on one part of a big, you know, think of it as points. And you change it to be more direct. You can be very direct. You can say, one note. Hello, how are you? Now you could think of characters that sound like that, right? You could speak it out. I don't care. Yes, they're all going yes. But I like to get some feedback. Can you think of ghosts or what else? Maybe a character that is
Old woman.
an old woman, okay. And so I brainstorm with the children. It's hard to do it on here. And let's try a different one, a flick. These are all light, like hello, 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 hello. Oh, look at Donis. She's really going, hello, hello. How are you today? Oh, so good to see you. Oh, I love. Yeah. And now let's change it from indirect, curvy. Indirect is curvy. The voice goes up and down. The movements go up and down. Like, let's change it to direct. Make it light. Hello, how are you? So good to see you. Try that. Hello, how are you? So good to see you.
Good to see you, robot, robot,
Right.
ABC, robot.
Good. And it
Hello, how are you?
some
Yeah,
Hello,
Hello, how are you? How are you?
yeah.
hello. How are
Very
you?
cold, like robot. Yeah.
Okay. So now I want. Oh, you better turn off your. Turn them off again because it will echo otherwise if I'm speaking. This kind of thing, the kids love thinking of characters that they've read about that dab. It gives them a language to talk about movement energy. And this language is carried over in many different other areas. For example, I had a student who said, Dr. Herman, division is just like a press. Let's do a press so you know what she meant. A press, do this. Get your body behind it and say, hello, forcefully. Don't turn your mics on because it echoes funny, but just do it. Joni, do it. Hello. And I said, really? Division is like a press? Oh yeah, she said. You have to goes into, and you have to hold it and press it in your mind. She was picking up the direct space, direct focus, and the firmness, right? And the directness, the firmness, and the sustainment, the slow time. You have to hold it. I said, oh. And then she had a whole bunch of other things, when it goes into, that was the old way of doing division. So I wanted to tell you that it goes into the body. Eventually, the kids feel these characters and they feel them and use them then in the voices, in the readings, in the storytellings we do. So I might as well show them the three other ones. Okay, we did a press. Now the other three firm ones are punch. Hello, do it. Go ahead. Good, I can see you. I can hear you in my mind's eye. Good. Okay, press. That's a real political one. That's the king, I am, it doesn't have to be, it could be I am the king. Yeah, look at I love watching you. And then there's the slash, like you're slashing through a jungle. Let's do that. Hello. Yeah, hello. Yeah, you're really going from up to down. The voice is moving in a curvilinear way. It's changing planes almost. If you think of an oscilloscope. Okay. Now the last one is a ring. Let's do the ring. Ring a washcloth and make your voice ring. Hello, how are you today? And you just brainstorm with the kids and they will have lots of ideas for what comes to mind. What comes to mind right away? Probably somebody just say it. What comes to a witch?
Evil.
Okay, something evil, a witch. Okay, But they'll relate it to all kinds of characters. I mean, it isn't a one-to-one correspondence, in other words. So we've done the efforts, Jean, and the movement efforts that we use, or that I use definitely, in activities that give the students a broader range of vocal, because this is a muscle, and physical alternatives when they're telling stories and solving problems. And, you know, like I said, Anne came up and said, division is like pressing. So believe me, they get it. Okay, Jean, that's a little bit of introduction about the movement.
Energy.
And yeah, and before we go into our last part, let's take a little break with going into breakout rooms. And I'd like you to think of a couple of things, and Jean has some things too. We could go into, let's see, Eric is here, I know. Eric, how many breakout rooms should we go into?
I am here. Well,
Yes. Because there's a lot of people, so I think we're going to have to really break up for about 10 minutes, and I'd like them to do a couple of things. I'd like them to think about what they feel comfortable with. You know, the light ones or the firm ones. The ones that are very direct and focused, like my husband when he gets his lists. No, he goes directly to the store. Me, I see something, I stop and talk to them. Or when I go to the library, I have a list. All right, I go direct. No, I noticed this book over here. Isn't this 11? Wow. And so I'm more curvilinear, and what the word is, flexible, and Steve is more direct, you know, very direct, very he's got the focus, and his movements very often when he dances, you can see him, he loves directness and firmness. So think about what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and maybe you could try on the ones that you're not comfortable with and just share it with each other. Oh, look, Jasmina is doing something. Yeah, I just like you to explore these with about, what is it, 4 other or 5 other people? I don't know how many groups we can make, Eric.
do you want 4 or 5 in a group?
Yeah, that sounds good, doesn't it, Jean, since there's 50?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we will be in a group with, you know, 2 different, we will all have 5 people. And are you clear what to do, Ken? Are you clear? Ken, do you need any further?
Well, let me just ask an ignorant question.
Yes.
When you're asking us as a group, talk about what we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Do you mean what we are comfortable with as just people living our lives, or as storytellers, or
It could
as
be
teachers?
Yeah, it could be either. Well, our lives are teaching if you're a teacher, but yeah, it could be
Mhm.
what feels most comfortable, what feels like, oh, I don't do that one very often. Or you might say, I
Could you
don't do any of
rephrase?
them.
Could you rephrase that and say, what kind of person are you most of the time? Are you mostly direct? Are you mostly flexible?
Yes,
Implying that that's what you're most comfortable doing.
yes. Are you mostly light or firm,
Okay, that's
direct
fair.
or indirect, or sustained and slow, because there's time, space, and force. Time, sustained, or quick. you know, and of course it depends on the situation, but I'm asking you. Pardon? I'm asking. Oh, that's weird.
Gail, that's your echo.
I don't know why it's an echo. I think you have to turn something off.
That's okay. Just keep talking.
Okay, so yeah, so what I'm asking you is just to think about what it is you feel most that felt good, or I'm not too familiar with that. And then it would be really interesting to think about a character that you could just say the lines of in the way you usually do, and then just change it a little bit to be either float, dab, flick, you know, like Mark, or very pressing, you know, and that's, or very slashing. So I just want you to explore for about 5 or 10 minutes. Is that okay?
And they should do it physically too.
Yes, definitely. So let's go over them again. Okay. Floating. Those are the, and gliding is a very straight, soft, light. You could be light up here or light down here. And then flicking, hello, hello. Oh, you know, the mind flicks sometimes too. And dabbing like robots. Hello, how are you? So good to see you. Oh, British. Oh, I've got it right here. Thank you, in my suitcase. Thank you very much. So dabbing sometimes, okay. Or the punching. Linda Marquisio is here, and she is a dancer, and she'll be in one of the groups, I'm sure. And so is that clearer, Ken, or do you need more? Are you sure? Okay.
It might be helpful to think, I'm just going to jump in here. It might be helpful sometimes to think of a situation that you think, oh, I'm not sure what I should do here. And then think, how can I explore to be more of or less of? Sometimes those situations we go, oh, yes. Maybe around certain people, you have to be lighter, or around other people, you have to be a different way. So that might be another way to explore.
Yeah, be fun. Just for, you know, what should we say? 10 minutes?
Very good. Okay, I'm opening the rooms. Okay, Jean, I see you. Gail, do I see you?
Yeah, she's here.
Good. All right. Well, do you want to lead a little
Right.
discussion about what happened in the breakout rooms?
Sure. Jean, would you like to lead that? Does anyone have any comments?
I would like to say it was really amazing when we spoke about our personality and how a personality is either light with children, heavy with adults, light with some adults. And this was Quinn really at the end, it was amazing. What is our signature move? She spoke about what is our signature move. I mean, that was amazing, because when I said I sometimes do like this or I go like this, and she said it means, and the way she interpreted it was so amazing. She said it's a mix of light and heavy. You are telling your children you are direct, you're a little heavy, but even little light, because this is like, yes, you're going like this. It has the curve and it has the firmness in it. It was, and I was like, holy, I didn't even think about it, because it was amazing. Seriously.
Okay. And Kajal, is that how you pronounce your name?
Kajal.
Kajal. Somebody asked to please have the list that I've got that I couldn't bring up for you, but I've got it and I can send it to anyone. If you email me at Gail, Gail, Herman, no, wait, I'll write it in the chat.
I put it in the chat. I
Yeah.
put a screenshot of it in the chat.
Oh, good. How did you get it?
It's on an angle. I took a screenshot and then put that file in the chat. So it's on
Okay.
an angle, but if you want to refer to it, just go to the chat and look. It's a file. You've got to click on it, but it will open up as an image.
Oh, thank you.
Can you redo it? Because not all of us could see the chat if we were still in our breakout rooms.
I'd be happy to send you the actual big
Okay.
Word document.
great.
It's easier to read than, but.
Great.
Yeah.
Are you going to enter your email for us?
Yeah, I put it in Gail at gailherman.net.
Oh, I don't
Gail
see it.
at gailherman.net. Okay, and then I can send that to you. Yeah. Okay. Now, so Jean, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, in our group, everybody had really good range of repertoire, excuse me. Everybody had a good range of the repertoire, but we were able to talk about different situations that might require another kind of voice or movement. And we talked a little bit about, because my background is psychology, we talked about mindfulness and imagery and breathing and working with the body and being present.
Right. Good, good. I'm so glad. And so is there anything else, Jean, that you wanted to share before we talk about organic storytelling? Yeah.
Okay, do we have time? We do?
Oh yeah, we have half an hour. Well,
Oh, okay.
20 minutes, because we have to end, for the next session. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. No, I don't think I have anything else. You mean just from the breakout room? I think people were able to just be able to try on different
Okay.
ways and explore.
Does anyone else want to share anything from the breakout room? Yes, Jasmine. Yeah.
Yes, Mina, thank you. First of all, I have to say that, in fact, I agree with Jean. And in my group, we also, if I understood good, we agree that it depends about different situations and about our surroundings, what movement or what techniques we use. For example, I mentioned that maybe most of the time I'm doing something like this. Let's say that I'm direct, but also I'm trying to be also open and open-minded to accept the others and their way of doing and expressive feelings and as well. And also what I was doing during our meeting, I was trying to imitate all movements of others. And Gail, I'm so sorry if you don't, if maybe some other cultures don't have a good opinion about that. I didn't mean to be rude, but I'm a drama pedagogue and a storyteller, and I like body, and I'm trying to be connected more with people by doing their movements. So I was imitating Gail before your different kind of movements while you were doing something like this. I'm also a yoga teacher, so for me asanas are very, very important. I was I'm trying to share my experience, and I'm feeling now connected with all people in our room, because while they were retelling their stories, I were imitating at the same time the movement. So now I'm feeling really full, or something like that, connected.
Okay.
And I'm really, really thankful for this topic, and I think that it's very important to be organic in our storytelling and in our lives.
Okay.
Without that, we are fake. So thank you, Gail, and thank you, Jean, and thank all members of my of the room I was participating. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. And
Gail, sorry, you wanted to
Yeah.
say something about Marasad. Remember about Marasad? You wanted to say about the show.
Yes, I wanted to say how important putting on different characters is. In the play on Broadway called The Assassination and the Persecution of Marat Sade, which was a big play years ago, those characters had to be in positions like, I mean, they had to walk and speak in very different positions. For months they did it before they had to stop and get understudies and take turns, because these positions were so affecting them, and it was coming home to their families. And the actors had to get relieved, if you will, from that positional and that energy that they were having to portray every night. What I mean to say, it wasn't healthy for them. After a while, they were they were becoming the characters, and it was not working well. That's just a story that, I'm a theater major, and it affected me so much when I heard that. And then, so it can be good to have a change and to have all the efforts rather than just one that they each had to convey night after night after night. Yes, Ken?
I'd just like to make an observation.
Yes.
As a storyteller and sometime teacher, trying to think about the purpose of this presentation that you're doing. And here's my change of thought. You've demonstrated to us that using a different posture or a different voice can have a big impact in your interactions with other people. As storytellers, we are able to bring the skills involved in theater to the classroom, whether it's directly or indirectly through Zoom. And we're not only introducing new ideas for children or audiences to consider, we are introducing them into new ways of being in terms of their energy level. And so if you can tell a story with big, strong characters and then have the kids mimic you, right? And learn to stand up straight like Superman or look like a menacing wolf, they are able to experience an energy mode that they may not normally use. You asked us to be sensitive about how we present ourselves most of the time. Well, in stories and in theater, you can be somebody else. You can try on. What does it feel like to be a powerful person? Or how can I show somebody that I'm not going to hurt them? So that's kind of my overview of what we're learning here, and I'll stop
Thank
there.
you. Wow, that is excellent what you just said. And it goes into what I call organic storytelling that my mentor, Mara Cappy, taught me, right, Jean? It's
Yes.
about this method from Africa. I also taught in Ghana, and I went up and met different storytellers in villages. And in the old days, especially, people would jump into the circle of the teller, you know, the circle at night, let's say, and would say, "Storyteller, I was present. What did you hear? What did you see? Ah." And they would continue the story either as they had heard it from whatever village they were in, or they would invent sometimes. At least that was what people wondered about. Just like merchants, you know, go from country to village to town, taking the stories and adding little bits from their own experiences, just little changes. And so, Mara Cappy developed this style of doing this with adults. "Oh," she would say, and I adapted this to kids. I say, "Oh, I didn't bring a book because you have better pictures here. And at a time in the story, I'm going to ask you what you saw or heard, how the character spoke. Okay, let's go. Let's go to this, whatever country the story is from, or maybe it's my own story." And I tell the story. And when there's a journey, hold your finger up, because this is, I want to know you're all listening to me. When there's a journey or a problem that the main character has, you can stop the story and say, "Now, along this path, the main character was traveling, and all of a sudden, there was something there. The character never," I'm using the word character instead of he or she, because it could be either. "They never noticed, they never saw this in the path before. What do you think they saw?" Hands go up. 200 kids, you know, in an assembly that I'm doing. I point to one. "Ah, my friend, what did you see?" Stands up. "I saw a snake," or whatever. And then I said, "Ah, for sure you were there. Let's do that. Ah, for sure you were there." And then I take that that little thing that the kids saw, just created, and I put it into the story and do a little 2-minute thing with it, you know? So that's a path. What did I have to use whatever they say, even if it's an elephant up in the tree. I have to put it in there, and I will. You know, I'll say this was a flying elephant. It was, you know, you just have to go with it. The kids love it. And they love it when everyone says, "For sure you were there." Or with the little kids, Barata, from Chennai, "You're right," is easier. Let's all do that. "You're right." "Ah, yes, you're right." And the kids, even sixth graders, will go, "I'm right, I'm right." "I'm right." First time they've been right all week, you know, but they're right today. So if it's a problem, I just add on how they solve it. Oh, what else do you think they did? They brought a net. They brought a, if you want to extend that to being a problem of getting safe. They dug a hole. You're right. What else did they do? They did this. You're right. So a problem or a journey is easy, okay, in a story, a folk story. And you just have to have faith that this happened over time, this folk story. And it's been through many, many versions, right? Here's Crow, Here's Crow is from the Native American tradition. And when she tells stories, she has to say, it's a longhouse story, because every little culture has their versions. So, and so that I did want to say those things. So my organic storytelling, I've trademarked it, but believe me, I would be so happy if you could find ways to include the students' ideas in the story. And when they tell you, ask them to show me how the characters stood, like the Queen of England that Jean did with her clients, or let me hear how the characters sounded, and you get into maybe with the games, they'll have different ways of sounding. So
I wanted to
that's,
add something before I go into the part about the
yes,
more about
I'm done.
organic storytelling. Okay. What you were
Okay.
just talking about, the you are right, just really reminded me of what Ken was bringing up. Just as
Yes.
you give the students different opportunities, for being in character, you're giving them opportunities also to know what it feels like to be right. And maybe
Yes.
at this time, it's very a nurturing experience. Like, how many of us know or are used to, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But to have somebody go, you're right, for
Oh,
sure.
everybody has to echo me. You're right. So then, or if I say, for sure you were there, they all say it to that kid.
Right. And so they feel that in their body, just that multiple, I think it was a Jasmina that talked about being connected, but when you're like the mirror, mirrors what other people, you feel validated and you feel you're part of this experience with a group. And so it just sort of strengthens you and reinforces those good feelings in your body too.
Yes.
So I just think that's an important part of the role of the listener and the being able to say, or the whole crowd, all the listening folks, you're right. Can you imagine going through the day and all of a sudden you hear this, you're not sure about something, but all of a sudden you hear somebody just say, you're right. Wouldn't that just give you some courage?
Yes.
Can you imagine like, oh, I don't know if I should do this. No, you should, and you're right. Imagine the music, or the encouragement behind you. You're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that in that way that it connected really well to what Ken was saying about the teaching.
You. Yeah.
But I think that for each of us, we can sort of bring that to our experience. When we might need to, that might be that strength, like, okay, I know what it's like to feel supported. So I'm going to bring that to maybe a moment when I don't feel quite supported. And I'm going to imagine somebody going, you're right.
Okay.
So to try. But again, here's another one along the theme of organic storytelling. Is that okay if I continue?
Yeah, we have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to hold up this book. This was a book along organic storytelling, just like healing and growing movement and energy efforts. Movement and energy efforts are important. Retelling and reframing are also important. This is a book called Stories for the Third Ear by Wallace. It's written by a clinical social worker, who after a few sessions of meeting with her client, she has a story. I think they are interesting, and she does have her way of telling and reframing. She doesn't really quite say how, but it is certainly one example. I usually work differently. I kind of like listen to the client and the story emerges.
Right.
But I just wanted to share one metaphor that has been helpful. I like to use stories from nature. An example from nature, oftentimes people are struggling. And this is probably a very obvious example, but I find it useful. I just share about that their struggle is part of their path to being strengthened. And I use the metaphor of the butterfly, the caterpillar turning into a butterfly, and how when it's in the chrysalis stage, the butterfly has to be strong enough to get out of the cocoon. And you can't go up and you can't snip the cocoon and say, fly out. The only way the butterfly can fly out is that it has to struggle. And the struggle is part of the strength, because once they get out, then they have to like pump their wings.
Mhm.
They have to do something with their wings so that it gets fluid so they can unfold.
Yeah.
And we don't usually think, well, maybe when we're younger, we don't think like we want to be strong, but we don't realize that we have to struggle to get strong. Transformation requires a process and there's no shortcut. But having that metaphor gives them, it just reframes their struggle, hopefully in a more meaningful way. And just examples from nature just show that kind of this is the way, just you know, like having the examples from nature to show this is the way it is.
Yeah, it's a wonderful example. And Jean,
Yes.
I love too your story that you told me about walking the path.
Oh yes, that's right.
Over every season, she would go on a path.
Okay, I can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, and then I think we have to end after that, because this is about retelling, which Eric is so into, retelling and noticing and feeling the feelings. Healing is in the feeling.
Right.
So
So every season I like to go hiking, and I like to go at least once every season if I don't get out more often. And I noticed that when I go even along the same path to a mountain nearby, I see different things every season. And I notice, in the spring that you see the green leaves, but then then you get to the autumn and then the leaves change and they have the golden colors. But then in the winter, it's all different. The scenery, the landscape has changed. And there are no leaves, but then what I see are the branches and the shapes of the branches and the bark. And you see different things that you don't notice before. And it's the act of noticing that is so very important. And things come to the forefront and others recede. And there's something kind of meditative about this, even though it's might be the same path, but just the act of noticing, and how retelling is very important because we notice different things that we didn't before.
And that is so true of retelling stories. The more you tell them, the more you begin to realize something about them. And we could go into the whole thing of discharging, but that's another session. So
Well, you said the word. How are you using that word discharge?
crying, laughing, shaking, storming. So as a story is being told, Harvey Jenkins talks about this in his counseling theory. So as a story is being told and retold, as it is in in Jean's profession, personal stories retold. At some point, there is a discharge. Maybe they begin to get they laugh at themselves. or you know, like the boy who was thrown into a pool, and his mother said to me, he cries every time he goes into a pool, you know, a indoor pool. Well, chlorine, it all brought it back. The teacher had thrown these little kids into the pool, and that was the old method of how they were going to learn to swim. The kid cried, and the mother didn't let him cry. Eric, no, it's okay, dear. Rushed him out. And now the mother's coming to me and saying he's 7 or 8, I don't know what age he was, and he cries every time he goes into a pool. Well, that's obvious. He never got to discharge that fear that's being held in the body, the memory of the smell, the memory of all those things that, you know, the noise, the echo. So once she understood that, they did some work, you know, talking about it and going back. I mean, that was a lucky guess on my part that she told me about that early experience. Does that help, Eric?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's yeah, that's in the counseling realm. It doesn't always happen that they cry, but I mean, there's usually some kind of, after you tell it and retell it, retell it, you know, the things get placed in this, that was then, this is now. I'm not going to get thrown in. Eventually, those things get separated enough in the retelling of the stories.
But I think it takes like it took you or another listener or somebody else to help him get over that.
Right. The
Sometimes
listener, right,
other people have an important role in listening to the retelling. Because they can reframe, or shift it in a different direction that has a more positive outcome, like you did with the student.
Yeah. And Sidney Gerard said healing is with a significant other, and the retelling and the, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know, there's different counseling views, so please don't think that we know everything, right, Jane? We're just telling you from our experiences.
Sorry, could you write on the chat the title of the book you shown before?
Oh yeah, I gave it to Jean. It's called
I'll write it in.
Stories for the Third Ear.
Okay.
I'm writing it in.
Yes, and the author, of course. Thank you. Thank you.
And it's by Lee Wallace. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I bought 2 copies used, and they were like $2 or $3, and you know, there are used copies out there. I'm not sure that, you know, it's, these books go in and out of print. Once, I think it was President Reagan had them tax books in the bookstore at the end of every year. So they have to get out. So there's not many being printed of that anymore, because there's not many. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you, Jean. That was wonderful. And
thank you.